Warning: the episode you are about to listen to most likely contains graphic language, details of violence and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. What is up, everybody?
Hey, welcome back.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, babe.
How are you? Happy Thursday, but it's really a Tuesday, but happy Thursday, Tuesday.
Happy Thursday, Tuesday. I really wish it was Thursday.
Me too.
In all actuality.
But it is Thursday for you guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Murder with My Mother, where I talk murder with my mama.
And I hope you guys had time to miss us, because we've been gone for 2 weeks this time instead of 1.
I know, we're playing hard to get, so... Well... So this week we have a pretty strange case for you guys. All these cases are pretty strange because, getting into the minds of these people is pretty strange.
This one is a little more sexually deviant. I think that makes it a little more strange. I guess they're all sexually deviant, but this one is differently sexually deviant.
Yeah, so we are going to cover today the... murders, break-ins, and, well, of course there's murder, or we wouldn't be talking about on Murder with My Mother, but...
Yeah, this one has some quite a few thefts leading up to it, like in the 80s, I do believe.
Yeah, no, there's 82 break-and-enters, 2 vicious sexual assaults, and 2 heinous murders that he took his time with the break-and-enters, and then he escalated, super quickly with the sexual assaults and the murders.
Once he became hands-on, then he couldn't
take his hands off.
Yep.
Yeah. So if anyone has guessed, we are covering the now disgraced, once decorated, Colonel Russel Williams.
A Canadian icon at one time. He was the colonel of the base at Trenton. Very, very, very decorated. Spent time with all levels of government. Turned out to be a deviant murderer.
Sexual weirdo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he drove. I know in 2005, he actually even flew, the Queen and Prince Charles came, and he was their pilot.
Wonder how they felt about that later on.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
So it was January in 2009, and there's a place in Ontario called Orleans. So it's right by our nation's capital, which is Ottawa. And Brenda Constantine and her husband, Brian Rogers, and their children just came home after they were away for a couple of days. The daughter, who was 15 years old, went up to her room and came down and was like, all my underwear are gone out of my drawer. And
that would have taken me till the next day to
realize.
Notice. Yeah.
Well, good thing she pays attention.
Yeah.
I would be freaked out too. So she kind of was like, no, I didn't do it. The mom was basically thought that she just lost them, or if they fell on the ground or whatever, because you don't think what's about to happen, obviously. So then they realized that some bathing suits were missing, some pictures of her were missing.
Creepy.
So they called the police. There was also, like I said, there's photos gone and dresses and underwear and bathing suits. But there was also, the police told them that they should sanitize her dresser area because they found semen on it. So if that leaves any mystery to what he was doing, or the intruder was doing, obviously a male intruder, was doing with the photos of this young girl. And yeah, so... and that, like I said, that was in 2009. And so in that area... there were 34 similar break-ins between 2008 and 2009. Yeah, they called them just peculiar because things like that were missing. There were quite a few reported, but, not all of them that were being done were reported because the people didn't actually even know that someone had been in their house for half of them.
Well, I think, too, that they escalated as probably... up until 2009, when it was a noticeable thing where he took absolutely everything. I think up until then he probably just had been taking
1 or 2 pairs of underwear or something. Yeah. And then right away, then he was just, I guess, wanted all of them. This wasn't enough options when he got home.
Yeah.
In 2004, him and his wife bought like a little lake house, like a cottage in the town of Tweed. So Tweed is midway between Ottawa and Toronto.
It's a lake community, like a vacation community. So it's quite small.
Yeah, so his wife and him just would use it for just like getaways, and they'd go there with friends and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
because in 2007 he started spending a lot of time there on his own.
Okay.
And a lot of weird break-ins started happening on Cozy Cove Lane starting in 2007.
Oh God.
But in 2009
he was basically living on Cozy Cove Lane while his wife lived in the city during the week.
Yeah, because CFB Trenton was right there, so it was much more accessible to him during work days, right? So he would go see his wife Mary Elizabeth on weekends, or she'd come there on weekends, and they kind of would just swap out. In 2005, he was promoted to wing commander, which is a good, I don't know much about like rank in the military, but he was in the Air Force.
Nor do I.
Yes, okay. So maybe someone can let us know.
So if we fuck it up, then
sorry,
don't judge us.
We pre-apologize.
Yeah.
Because we know we're going to fuck it up. So,
yeah.
But, so he was wing commander, but then again, like we said, July 2009, he was appointed base commander of CFB Trenton, which is a big...
well, that's the head honcho, isn't it?
Yeah, well, CFB Trenton's like where all of the... If you're going to war, if you're being deployed, that's the last place that you are on home soil. That's the last place that
all the
soldiers
jets,
come in and out
right?
of. Yeah, and he was in the Air Force, so obviously he was in charge of the Air Force there. So it was the 8th Wing, I believe it's called. In the first 5 months when he was living more so in his lake house in Tweed on Cozy Cove Lane, there were 10 break-ins reported in the first 5 months of his new role at
So
CFB
basically
Trenton.
like 2 a month.
Yeah. So
Cozy
Cove. Yeah, I guess people were not... I mean, they were much cozier before this came out because these are like super weird, uneasy crimes. Like they would make you feel
very violated.
Yeah. Because of his new role, he was in charge of doing a lot of press. So he would do a lot of press. He would go away, the government.
Yeah.
And so on September 16th of 2009, he came home from a meeting up in the Arctic. He had a big meeting with a bunch of the top pilots in the Arctic. And the next day, he broke into a woman's home, and the woman had just had a baby.
Yeah, the baby was only 8 weeks old.
She was bound to a chair, and she was sexually assaulted, and he made her pose for all these photos.
Let's talk about the beginning of that, though. She woke up to him being in her bedroom.
That's like your worst fear.
With a mask on.
You know, because you always think if you, like when I had dreams, or I've had dreams that are scary and feel real, and then you wake up from that dream, that relief that you have.
Yeah.
Imagine waking up and realizing it's not a dream and there's no relief, and you're fucking terrified because there's this creepy person shining this flashlight in your face, and your baby, especially when you're a new mom, you're so... You know, like...
Well, yeah, you're like obsessively,
protective, right?
Instinctually protective of your newborn, and then there's an intruder standing in your bedroom in the middle of the night.
And how you feel about your own body right after you
have a baby, you feel like you've been through war and back.
Well, you're exactly, your nipples are raw,
everything.
Yeah, everything's raw, especially if you have, a baby the regular old-fashioned way, and especially to be sexually assaulted, 8 weeks postpartum, that's the last thing that should be happening to your body.
Even someone taking photos of you naked when you're postpartum has got to be a violation, for sure. I mean...
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Another weird thing that he did to the first victim was he made her count to 300 before she, opened her eyes, or I guess, right?
Yeah, and then... So she was counting. She couldn't hear anything, and by the time she got to 70... She stopped counting, and he was still standing there.
Ew, imagine you turn around, and he's, still... and we'll put some pictures, because, and all the pictures, he has the same face. When you see this guy's face, it's very, his eyes are very piercing, and he's very, he looks, empty, but then again... It's
just like a normal dad guy.
Yeah, that's why it's so weird, because, especially because he was such a decorated part of our, I don't know.
I think, though, while he was breaking into the first 2 assault victims' houses, he did have his face covered with a mask. So
yeah.
But I mean, regardless, he covered the first victim, Jane Doe. We still don't know her name.
Yeah, there was a publication. There was a publication ban originally on both of the first on the sexual assault victims.
Yeah.
So the first one, was victim number 1, Jane Doe.
And she's the one that had the baby. And then
on September 30th, so it was like, what, 13 days, 12 days later?
Yep. So Lori Massacati, who was I believe in her 40s, was watching TV and ended up falling asleep on her couch.
Which I do that all the time. How creepy would that
so
be?
Do I.
Ugh.
And then she woke up because she was having a dream that she couldn't breathe, and she woke up and she really couldn't breathe. And there was a man suffocating her with her couch blanket that she fell asleep with. And then he just started punching her in the head over and over.
Yeah, and she said that she asked him, "Are you going to kill me?" And he replied, "Well, there would be no need for that."
Yeah,
like well, you're just going to punch.
No, we're just going to have tea.
Yeah, we're just going to sit here and violently punch you.
And then she told him that her head hurt after he was punching her in the head. And he took her to the bathroom and got her some headache medication.
Well, at least he was caring.
Yeah.
Right
before he cut her clothes off and tied her to a chair and sexually assaulted her, and then proceeded to take photos. So the exact same MO as the first time, except for he was more violent in the beginning with this one.
Well, yeah, because victim number 1, he didn't beat like that.
He didn't know.
And it's what makes me wonder if it was because she had a new baby.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because he was aware of the baby, obviously, and he'd been watching for a while because he kept asking her, "Where's the father of your baby? Who's the father of your baby?" So Lori Massacati didn't have a baby, so she had older kids, I think, but yeah, he was beating her like while she was still asleep. So that's pretty ruthless.
Each crime, he becomes almost more enraged.
Like more control is being exuded.
Yeah,
for sure.
So after that kind of sent, it was a really small town, like Cozy Cove Lane. Like, it just sounds like a small street, you know? So after that,
she called 911. She managed to call 911 after he made her account and he finally left. She says that the police didn't show up for 5 hours and she was tied up. And when they did show up, one of the police officers told her that there had been an assault that many days earlier on the same street, and he apologized to her for not getting it out to the media.
Damn. Such a shame when something could have been, you know, you could be on your guard or prepared.
And we keep seeing that. I mean, that's kind of a theme that repeats over and over and over with these cases. You know, like if things are just done properly, I think the police worry about like creating mass chaos in a neighborhood and fear, but wouldn't that be better than other people getting?
You could be vigilant, you could be aware, hypersensitive. Like my favorite podcast, they always say keep your head on a swivel, you know, and it's true, because you really, not to freak everybody out, but your eyes are a little more open when you are aware of what's going on. You can better protect yourself.
Yeah, like notice your surroundings, look around, look up, look down, you know, listen to your intuition. Something people don't do enough.
Your intuition is always right. PSA. We always like to do these PSAs. After initial investigation of these sexual assaults, they came to the conclusion that, well, they thought their first suspect that they had was Larry Jones, who was a Cozy Cove resident as well and lived right beside Russel Williams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine that one.
So Larry Jones actually said that he didn't have very many conversations with Russel Williams. He said he did have a conversation where, and he said it was really quite strange because he asked him out of nowhere. Like, he said he was always kind of quite, not cold, but kind of, you know, distant, standoffish and distant for a neighbor. I mean, a lot of people don't like to talk to their neighbors, which I don't blame them. So he said that he vividly remembers him one day being like, "Hey, Larry, where's that spot you said again? Where's your favorite hunting spot?" And, you know, Larry's like, "Oh," if you see him, and he's in a couple interviews, he's like the cutest, most Canadian man I've ever seen ever. And he's like just super cute, like a little grandpa. And he says, you know, I told him where my favorite hunting spot was and blah, 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 blah.
And that'll resurface again later.
God, yeah.
Larry's favorite hunting spot will come back.
Yeah, again. So Larry also talked about, you know, in a small community, if someone looks at you for something like that, you're automatically guilty. As soon as the neighborhood catches wind, like you know, I was basically, everyone thought it was me. How do you convince them otherwise? Yeah, like Larry the pervert. So in November of 2009, Anne Marsan Cook, so she was a music teacher and she lived in an old farmhouse, but she was a music teacher at CFB Trenton, the base. Yeah. So she lived in a farmhouse in Belleville, which was
Off the highway.
right off the highway. And so it was actually her birthday party and she was getting ready. And you know how when you're in like a rush to go somewhere, it's kind of like, I know for myself, it's very the mind on the prize. Like I'm going out, like I don't really pay attention to too much except for like my makeup, my hair, my dress, my whatever, you know. And so she said she was rushing around and she went into her room and noticed that the bedside tables, the drawers were open. And I mean, I don't know what people keep in there. It's not a Bible at my house either. So,
well, I can't really say since
you're the mother. Yeah, yours is a Bible.
Yeah, mine is definitely a Bible in my side table drawer.
Yes,
and not what this woman had in her side table drawer.
So she said that right away she noticed that her side tables were open, the drawers were open, and her dildos were all missing. That's what her own words. She said, she's a cute little French lady. I think she had
quite an expansive
collection
of
her tickle trunk.
Dildos.
Yeah, her neighbor. Yeah. So her neighbor was over because he was taking her to her birthday party. Obviously, she was gonna.
I think they were kind of seeing each other a little bit too. Like
it looks like that in the interviews.
It does, definitely.
And so even the way that they talk, they end each other's sentences and stuff. I thought that right away. And he's maybe the most Canadian man I've ever seen because he was like, "Oh, that's just crazy. You know, we're not. We're not gonna."
Those dildos were missing, eh?
Yeah. Well, he's like, "What kind of Yahoo would take something like that?" Right? And because for me, I would feel that would violate me right away if I noticed that stuff was missing. I would probably call the police. But thinking about exactly what do you say? My dildos are missing. So he said, we're going to be the laughing stock of the police. So maybe just don't
pretend that your dildos aren't missing. I'll buy you some new ones. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe don't.
That shit's expensive, too.
Right?
Not that I would know.
No. And so then she went out, had a great time for her birthday, probably subconsciously super creeped out that someone stole her dildo.
She also checked all the doors in the house before she left and made sure that they were locked.
Yeah, all of them. They deadbolted the kitchen door and locked all the windows. Yeah. Like kind of made sure because at first she thought it was like someone in her house that was playing a trick on her, but no one else was home. So so they locked everything and she went out to her birthday.
And she didn't come home that night. She stayed at her
neighbor's house.
Her neighbor/lover's house.
Yeah. And so the next morning, she had a home office. So she probably did some kind of home office, whatever you do when you have a home office.
Record podcasts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as we sit in a home office. And so she came upstairs quickly to photocopy something in her home office. And the neighbor was downstairs. The neighbor lover was downstairs and she had an old computer in her office and there was a message typed on it and the message said,
"Go ahead, call the police.
I want to show the judge your really big dildos." So she obviously lost it because that's the creepiest message ever because now you have that concrete evidence that someone actually stole your dildos.
And someone was actually in your house listening to the debate about calling the police because otherwise
exactly because he wouldn't have known. And she didn't really realize until she went into her bedroom and all her underwear were gone.
Oh yeah.
And in both of her drawers, they were completely empty. And yeah, that's pretty much when she realized someone was in the house listening to her conversation and in the house when she thought she was alone. And yeah, so...
That is really freaky.
And it's sad because, so that was in the earlier part of November. And on November 25th in 2009, Marie France Como, who also worked at CFB Trenton, she was a military flight attendant. She was murdered and she was found asphyxiated in her room, wrapped up in her blankets.
Yeah, her boyfriend actually found her.
Weird break-ins and stuff were continuing to happen. A lot of them, like I said, that were happening were actually happening under the radar. They were, people were not noticing.
Well, and another thing too is that because it was happening in two different areas, the police hadn't put it together that it was one person working in two different areas.
Yeah, because the different jurisdictions.
Like it always happens.
Mm-hmm. That's the main one.
Yeah.
We've got some main themes that go on in these stories.
Yeah.
So that is a big one because there were 3, I think, different jurisdictions that this was happening on. 2 or 3, and they don't communicate between. And there's super deviant sexual crimes happening. And those are
Yeah, like
probably
maybe,
related.
yeah, probably like you should look around at the district one
Yeah.
block over and see if shit's going down there too.
Well, especially these kinds of things like missing sex toys, missing lingerie, missing underwear. Those are common crimes that
Two sexual
happen
assaults,
to,
and now we're
yeah,
at a murder.
where they're bound.
Yeah.
The murder, though, so for Marie France, her murder was not linked to this ever until, well, his confession, right?
Yeah.
So because her murder this was his first murder. So I think that it's more of like, it was never probably meant to be a murder. That's usually, I know, what just happens the first time, and then they kind of get that bloodlust and then
Yeah.
go after that again, seeking it differently. Because then in January of 2010, Jessica Lloyd, who was 27 years old, she went missing. Well, 10:30, she texted a friend and said
Text
goodnight.
a friend and said
Night,
goodnight.
night. Yeah.
And then she didn't show up to her job the next day, which was completely out of character for her. So when they called, her job called her family, and her brother went over to her house, and
her phone was there, her purse was
everything
still
was
there.
there.
It's the key things where you know, okay,
Yeah.
alarm bell, ding, ding, ding. Like someone did not leave
Yeah.
on their own free will, because they would have brought their cell phone with them. They would have brought their purse with them. ID, you got to pay for anything. If they're going somewhere, that they're going, they're choosing
and her
to
car
go.
was still there, and everything else was still there.
So a man named Lyle Barker happened to be driving past Jessica's house at about 3 o'clock in the morning of the night she went missing, and remember seeing an SUV parked in a little field that was kind of in between the highway and her house. And he said that he even said he was driving with his cousin, and he said to his cousin, it's weird that car is there, that SUV. It's weird. Like, it was like something that
Which
he
kudos
remembered.
to him, because I probably wouldn't even notice.
No. But hey, you don't give yourself enough credit. Your intuition most of the time, you're pretty spot on, especially being a teenage daughter of yours at once upon a time.
That I was creeping.
You're pretty fucking spot on.
Deep in the creep.
Oh yeah. So the next day, because her family knew that she was missing, because it was very out of character, there was posters, there was search teams, there was everything put up. And Lyle Barker went to the police because on his way home, because he had initially on the night of the 28th, he had been going out of town. So he was coming back into town the next day, and he saw that there was this huge search party for her. But he noticed that, okay, yes, this girl's missing, but where this girl lived was right where
he saw
this suspicious SUV at 3 o'clock in the morning that shouldn't have been parked there. And he was some kind of trucker or truck delivery driver, something like that. So he paid better attention to his surroundings, obviously, than you and I would, I guess.
Yeah. Well, 3 o'clock in the morning, I mean, I wouldn't be out probably going to work, so.
No, but you know what? Now that I think about it, if you were on your way to work and you worked every night at 3 a.m, you would notice something
especially
like that.
In a small place.
Yeah. He put it together when he was coming home, and he called the police and let them know that he had spotted a suspicious vehicle. And luckily, because good old forensics, they tracked the tires, and this is very commonly used.
Was it snow that was on the ground?
So there was
that's
snow.
The thing about Ontario.
And it didn't snow again since that. So it hadn't snowed. So they were lucky. So they got literally perfectly frozen tire tracks.
And the tires, the type of tires they were not common tires. They were expensive.
So they were the Toyo tires. Yeah. So those are some bougie ass tires. So
and I think one of them had an anomaly or something. Like there was something where they would know exactly whose.
Well, that's the thing about tires, is because a lot of people, for myself, I know if I ever was driving away from somewhere and left my tire tracks, I'm pretty sure 4 different tires on my car. So
cased right away.
Ghetto. But yeah, 4 different tires, and exactly, if they were to take my tire prints, they would know right away.
Yeah.
So what they did is they actually put up almost like a roadblock, but what they were doing is
looking at tires.
Yeah, they were checking people's tire tread and tire track marks.
And he went through the roadblock.
Yeah, so he went through the roadblock, and they didn't obviously say hey, sir, your tires match. No. They didn't let him know. They wanted
his name, and
they wanted to pretty much keep the upper hand. And it's funny because when they initially went to go canvass the area after those break-ins and sexual assaults were happening, they were just about to go to his house, but he wasn't home. And they asked the neighbor, who lives in that house? Who's your neighbor?
His name was on the mailbox.
Yeah, and then they said, oh, no sense in searching here. He's the Colonel.
Yeah.
I never understood though, why is the word colonel spelled like colonel?
Maybe that's really how you say it.
It's not, because every time I say,
Colonel.
yeah, I'm always like, I don't know.
We'll have to do some thorough research on.
If any of you guys are military or have any kind of military, let us know, because that has literally driven me crazy my whole life, because I always wanted to go.
It probably stems from a Latin word.
Probably every word stems from
Latin.
Latin. There we go. Mom's bilingual, trilingual. So for all of you that didn't know that. So they put up surveillance and they asked him Thursday, February 4th is when the tires matched. On Sunday, February 7th, they called Russel Williams in and they told him about his tires. So obviously that happened after a really long, like that, they told him and then he denied.
The interview is actually online and it's 9 hours long and it's really worth watching.
We didn't watch the whole entire 9 hours.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was condensed on Dateline or something that I watched, and they brought him in there at 3 p.m. and started questioning him, and they were like, so tell us about your life, and he was just chewing his gum and laughing. Well, it's pretty boring, ha ha ha. And the guy that was interviewing him was amazing. He kept his cool. He was, just saying, like, hypothetically, if anything in here makes you want to request a lawyer or...
Oh, he made him seem very non-threatened.
Yeah, like, totally. He was great.
He had his guard down. It's because he actually initially thought that he was just bringing him in there because they really thought it was his neighbor. Because Larry Jones was his neighbor.
Larry.
So he was in there ready to talk about Larry and Larry's, suspicious activity that he had seen or anything like that about Larry.
He was pinning shit on Larry, but he didn't know what they had on him.
No, and then when they unveiled that they had the tire tracks and that they matched his car.
And they had other stuff too. They said, like, would you be willing to give us a DNA sample?
A buccal swab. If your buccal swab matches DNA found, like hypothetically, what do you think? Yeah. Have you ever been to Marie-France Comeau's house? Have you ever been? All these hypothetical questions where...
And he was just like, it's so funny because you can see in the point of the interview where his eyes, you can see his heart basically beating through his sweater, and you can see his eyes turn completely dark and beady.
They're like adrenaline eyes.
Yeah, he totally had adrenaline eyes.
Yeah.
And so he was actually starting to confess by 7:45. So 4 hours and 45 minutes in was when he started the confession.
So after he confessed everything, he pretty much helped them and told them everything, and so he led them to Jessica Lloyd's body. He admitted that he brutally murdered her. He admitted first to Marie-France Comeau.
And he admitted, like, in graphic detail, in the most monotone voice, that basically he was just talking about what he had ordered at Denny's that day.
Yeah, it was a very nonchalant.
Yeah.
It almost looked, and it kind of looks like this when you see a lot of interrogations where people are confessing when it's not coerced, that it's almost like it's a relief.
Yeah. Like they're saying, and his biggest worry through the whole confession that took 5 more hours or whatever, was that his wife wouldn't find out. That was what he was the most worried about. And he confessed to a lot of other stuff that they didn't know about.
Well, that's the thing, because they didn't know any of this stuff. A lot of the break-ins, because he went undetected, a lot of people didn't even, they just took it. I've lost a couple pairs of underwear. I think it's just like, okay, did I leave them? Are they in the laundry? Are they, you just don't think about it. But, so some people didn't even know that they had their houses broken into until after he told them everything. He let them know that all of his houses, obviously they're going to go in and search everything, and he let them know where all of his stuff was. So,
what's so crazy about that is, like, I don't know if I'm just extra searchy or extra investigative, but I know exactly what's in every single part of my house. And when I was living with a partner, I knew even where all their stuff was and if anything was moved. So the fact that his wife didn't see any of that, because there was when they went in and searched through
It's
a
like
list
boxes
of like what they
and
have.
boxes and boxes. No, everything, all his trophies that he stole, that's what you call them, trophies. When a murderer takes something to remember or bring
A
back those
crime, yeah.
feelings from one of the crimes that they've committed, it's called the trophy. So not only did this guy have, a couple trophies or just the ones from his murders or just the ones from his sexual assaults, he had like over 82 separate photos of himself in women's lingerie, swimsuits, bikinis. Everything was meticulously
Yeah, he was
cataloged.
wearing young girls' underwear,
Yeah,
old
there's
women's underwear, and
hundreds and hundreds of underwears.
saved all the pictures for the spank bank.
There's baby blankets.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of weird stuff. There's dildos.
And
There's
boxes and boxes and boxes of these trophies, and they were meticulously
like labeled.
Yeah.
It was the
like colonel style.
Yeah, like colonel style.
Colonel.
It was not. It was colonial. It was literally all like date, time, place, like everything was written. All the info from every attack, so he could pretty much go in and relive everything. My favorite, though, side note, if you Google him and hit image search.
Yeah, there's like
all of
hundreds of pictures of him come up
of the same, but he has the same colonel face. Like it's like this. It's like you can look at a picture of him in his colonel outfit and his with some high-ranking official beside him and the face he has, and then you can look at him in women's lingerie and underwear. Which that's fine if you do that, but just don't steal other people's and don't
kill
murder people and sexually assault them to steal their underwear.
Exactly.
So they also
or
found
just go buy some. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Buy your own.
Yeah.
So they also found videos of Marie-France Comeau's attack
and murder, subsequent murder,
and also Jessica Lloyd's murder. So, Mom, if you want to go in with the details of those ones.
Oh, so heart-wrenching. So, with Marie Como, he had videotaped himself sexually assaulting her and beating her with a flashlight. And then he murdered her by wrapping her head in duct tape. So she was smothered.
Asphyxiated her.
And she was assaulted for several hours before he killed her. And with Jessica Lloyd, he first assaulted her at her house, and then he took her in his Pathfinder, and he beat her severely, and she had a couple seizures and was begging him to take her to the hospital, and he kept raping her until he murdered her also. And he videotaped himself asphyxiating and strangling her. And then he dumped her in his good old neighbor Larry's
Cary Road
favorite hunting spot.
Yep. So
that was like very big proof of premeditation when he had already asked the man.
Well, premeditation, and he's trying to clearly frame and set up so that it looks like he has an out. So that Larry Jones
did it.
Yeah, well, word on the street was everyone thought Larry Jones did it anyway. So if he's got all this stuff, he's got the backup. But they didn't find anything originally when they executed the search warrant at Larry Jones. They cleared him because they couldn't tie him to anything substantial that said like, oh, this guy's not just a creepy Canadian guy that lives on Cozy Cove Lane. But this is pretty much what Russell was looking for to make it so that he could say like, oh, well, my neighbor Larry always hunt. You could see where he was going with this.
Well, and Russell, I mean, other than the fact that he was so stupid about the tires and the snow and stuff like that, I mean, he got away with this. They figure he was breaking into houses from 2005.
But you know what?
Probably his whole life.
That's what I mean. You do not just start doing that. That's something, and for a majority of people that start off like this starts in puberty because it's something that's one of his things, something that gets him going.
Yeah. When
you're going through puberty, your hormones are running rampant. They're going crazy, and you start to do weird stuff. That's not. He didn't just start doing that in 2005.
No, but my point is that he was such an intelligent man. I mean, look, he rose up the ranks to the top of the Air Force.
Look at Mr. Theodore Bundy.
And then he did something so stupid by having fucking Toyo tires.
Yeah, no. But you know what? I think also your head gets big. You know, you've gotten away with this.
You got a big head.
You are the colonel of
bad hair.
horrible. CFB Trenton, and like no one, you're untouchable because
everyone's look how much beneath you for sure.
Well, and look at how much shit you've gotten away with already. Like you're for sure. You know, you get into that mindset of like nobody can touch me, and clearly
I'm Colonel Sanders.
I'm sure Colonel Sanders also had. Oh, I'm starting to get tired.
Colonel.
So after that, after all, like he was charged obviously because he confessed. You know, he sat there and told them everything they needed to hear. So he was charged with the 2 deaths and 2 counts of forcible confinement and 2 counts of breaking and entering, just based on those confessions. So the 2 murders.
And it took them like 10 months or something to get his DNA back. So
yeah, and he was charged because it was the 2 sexual assaults, the one on Jane Doe and then on Lori Massacotti. So that's where he was charged with 2 counts of forcible confinement and breaking and entering, was for the crimes committed against them. So on March 26th, he signed his Ottawa house over to his wife.
And I think they filed for separation right then also.
Well, because you have to see. I mean, later on, victims believed that the wife knew what was going on. And like you kind of touched on, living with someone and not knowing where, you know, all that, like, sorry, what are these 45 boxes of random shit in our basement or whatever, you know? Like, wouldn't you notice or wonder what that was?
I myself would notice, but I'm PSA warning to anyone I may date in the future, a little bit of a noticer of stuff.
Yeah, she notices stuff. But I mean, maybe to a point you don't want to see that, you know, or you don't want to know what's in those boxes. I would want to know, but that's just of course. But maybe he was always kind of a weirdo. You can't just marry a guy that's a weirdo, and then just expect him to un-weirdo himself.
Yeah, but by all accounts, from everyone, they were like the most normal, boring, older, like dull couple on the planet. There's actually rumors that they were like bearding for each other because they were both kind of weirdos, but we don't know that. I mean, that's all pure speculation, and rumor mill. So.
Well, his best friend was quoted saying, there's an interview that I guess he had a girlfriend when he was in the first years of college. And then after that, there was a bad breakup. And that's when he decided he was going to be a pilot. And he kind of made all these decisions that were like whirlwind. And also what happened was he didn't have a girlfriend ever until he all of a sudden announced to his friends that he was going to marry his wife. Who later turned out to be his wife. So it was really weird because he had very close friends. And for them not to even catch any wind that he even had a girlfriend or was like dating somebody and all of a sudden he's married. It's weird, but I mean.
There's a lot of sus shit going on, to quote Pierce. A lot of stuff sus in this whole investigation.
Yes, there's a lot of sus going on here. So April 3rd, he tried to kill himself by stuffing a cardboard paper, like a bathroom tissue roll.
Toilet paper roll.
Yeah, toilet paper roll down his throat. He wrote a suicide note first on the wall in mustard, which he must have...
I don't know, like when mustard really... Could you read a suicide note in mustard?
For sure. I've gotten mustard on so much of my stuff.
Yeah, but have you written in mustard?
No, but like mustard really dries darker than you think.
Stains also.
Yeah, and it really dries darker than you think it's going to.
However... blood, I think, would be better than mustard if you're already going to kill yourself.
Yeah, but look at him. He's trying to swallow a paper towel roll. Clearly, he's really not trying to, do the job. Because those disintegrate so fast anyway. Anyway. So, not only that, so April 30 did that. April 7th, he went on a hunger strike. Because the day before, he'd gotten taken off of suicide watch now that there was no more paper towel rolls in his cell.
The mustard was all gone, so they figured it was safe.
But on April 7th, he went on a hunger strike. On April 29th, after looking through all the trophies and comparing the things that were reported, any crimes that were reported, and going and obviously, finding...
And they tied it to the 2 different places.
Well, they tied it to, everywhere. So he kind of let them know where he was working, and then they went through all his evidence, and they pretty much let all the families know, hey, you know how...
There was a killer in your daughter's bedroom.
Sorry about that. There was actually... And we mentioned, a lot of people didn't even have any idea because one or two pairs of missing underwear, missing pictures, they didn't put those, they didn't think anybody had been in their home.
Well, and a lot of the victims that he took unmentionables from were like 11-year-old girls and 12-year-old girls.
Yeah, they lose shit all the time anyway. Yeah. I lose shit all the time. At that age, you're losing stuff all the time to keep underwear.
But imagine knowing there had been someone that killed 2 women and assaulted 2 women in your child's bedroom, wearing her bathing suit or her underwear or coming on her dresser. Like,
yeah, so there were
ejaculating
on her dresser.
Yeah.
There were 82 counts in total of breaking and entering. So 46 of them were in Tweed.
Which Tweed is a tiny little lake town.
Yeah, so there's probably literally 50 houses there. Yeah. And he targeted 46
Jacked
of
off
them.
On 46 of them. One of them was his own, so...
So 2 of them were in Belleville, which is where the lady whose dildos were taken. She lived in Belleville, right off the highway. So there was another person around her.
And then go do a tour of this place.
Yeah, so nice farmhouse. Or did you want to go for the dildos? Well, maybe. They're not there anymore. So, and then there was 34 of them that took place in Ottawa. On May 6th of that same year,
was Lori
Massacotti, actually.
She's pretty ballsy, actually. She says she's 100% sure that his wife was aware of the whole thing and that separating and the sale of their house was a loophole.
Yeah, so that she sued them.
Yeah, so she didn't lose everything.
Which, I mean, if she really had no idea what was going on and
yeah, like if she didn't, then can you fucking imagine if your husband did all that?
No! I've dated some guys where you figure some shit out after and you're like, damn, bitch, how did I miss that? So...
Never mind,
he's... Like, especially, okay, to have a husband who is in this ranked official position and you have, imagine
and she was actually the head of the Cancer Society of Canada.
Yeah, so she's
also like a prestigious job title.
And then that's really what's going on when you're not with him. That's fucking crazy. I would have a lot of issues after that.
I hope she got some counseling.
Me too. She needs like a lifetime. The wife obviously denied knowing anything. She said, she was completely broken and devastated. Everyone that knew her...
And she filed for divorce very quickly after she found out. So I think that's what she was also, if she was telling the truth.
Well, she said she had no idea. So on June 24th, his lawyer asked for an extension and they set the pretrial to start for August 26th. And that day, when he came to court on August 26th, he actually waived his right to a preliminary hearing, which is essentially when your defense team gets to hear everything that the Crown has against you. So so he waived his right to that. So he was basically like,
it's all fucking cataloged. He knew exactly what was there.
Well, yeah, because he cataloged it himself, right? So he signed that over.
He could be the best witness for the defense that they had.
Yeah. So on August 7th, when he went to court, he told the judge that on future date, on the 18th, he was planning to plead guilty to everything.
Absolutely everything, which is great because he should have.
Well, and it saves the victims' families. Well, yeah, and when you just basically sign everything over to them and, signed on the dotted line, this is what I did. Here's all my 45 boxes of cataloged evidence for you guys that links you to crimes that you didn't even know happened.
Yeah. And he probably had a prudent side since he was a colonel that was going to make him save money for the government also.
Well, that comes up because he was trying to get his military pension later when he was in jail. What's up with these murderers thinking they're just entitled to pension? Fucking Canada. But his was a military pension and he actually was getting it. Yeah. And he got it. He was living off of it, which I mean...
Jeepers creepers.
And when all of this was said and done, to save the families, he pled guilty to save himself, I'm sure, from the embarrassment, to save his wife, to save the military. And it's funny because in his interrogation, when they first started to kind of say to him, you did this, or, they're insinuating he did it, he says to them, once the rumor mill starts, you guys better watch what you guys say. You guys better watch. You don't want to accuse the military of this and blah, blah, blah. He's trying to really...
Until 2 hours later when he starts coldly confessing.
When his eyes turn crazy. Yeah. When it's all said and done, he was sentenced to 2 terms of life with no chance of parole for 25 years. And that was for the first-degree murders of Corporal Marie France Como and Jessica Lloyd. And he was also sentenced a year per every charge that he had. So there was 82 lesser charges of breaking and entering and all that stuff. And so he was sentenced 1 year per crime.
So 82 years.
82
plus
years.
2 first-degree murder sentences, which would be 25 years each without the possibility of parole because it's first degree.
Yep. And his sentence also included that he wasn't allowed to ever possess a weapon.
Well, that's good because he'll be in jail.
Yeah, but I mean, even if he got out, because really, it's Canada.
Well, there
so
was
weirder shit happened.
Clause, yeah.
Exactly.
It's not anymore.
Yeah, and he didn't even use weapons, really. Like if you.
No, he
it should be like he's not allowed to. You're not allowed to own a camera. Not allowed to wear lingerie. Like weird shit.
Not allowed to have saran wrap.
Yeah, and so another thing is he's has to register as a sex offender, which good if he ever got out. He had to submit DNA samples, and he had to pay, which I don't know how I feel about this, $100 a victim fee for every person he victimized. He had to pay $100.
So like all 84 underwear that he stole.
Well, it totaled $100 each. It totaled to $8,800. So
88 victims.
Yeah, but
that's weird.
It is weird, and he still hasn't paid it. Isn't that weird?
That's weird.
Yeah.
But can you imagine getting this money? Like you're an 11-year-old kid, and your mom gives you $100 and says, "Here, honey, go see a movie with this. The man that jacked off on your dresser had to pay you this because he victimized you."
Yeah, and like, did they get their underwear back? Did they get all like that?
Expensive, especially the dildo lady. She should go to Extra.
Underwear is so expensive. I went to go buy underwear the other day, and you know what? La Senza, it's 6 for $34 or something. That's ridiculous. Anyway, so don't buy underwear.
That's a crime. That's on our that's our next podcast.
The murder of my wallet when it comes to buying underwear.
I'm going commando. I'm going colonel.
So, disgraced
Colonel
Russel Williams is serving his sentence in the Kingston Penitentiary max security ward known as the G Block. I'm pretty sure Paul Bernardo is in there, and I think I read inmates like that, they get 23 hours where they're in solitary confinement and 1 hour a day where they get to frolic in the yard.
I think even when they're out in the yard, though, that they're by themselves because it's very dangerous for them to be amongst the prison population, as we say in the past.
In almost every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're pretty much just alone.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what they have access to, because we've heard several cases of people, being able to communicate quite freely and
have pen pals and date
like
people.
We've said, Canada's a little on the lax side when it comes to stuff like that. We love our country because it's a relaxed, beautiful place to live, but probably one of the best places to create a heinous crime and get your wrist.
You'll be able to raise your see your grandkids basically. Yeah. So
have some, as we said with Kelly Ellard, have some conjugal visits and
create your own
get pregnant,
whatever.
Yeah.
So that was the case of disgraced Colonel Russel Williams, the weird dildo stealer. We will see you guys not next Thursday, but the Thursday after. And remember, everybody, just stay home. Keep the numbers down. Don't
stop spreading COVID all
over. Wear a mask and don't fight each other if you don't want to wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, stay home. If you don't want to go into a store that doesn't allow your mask in there or does or whatever, don't fucking shop there then. Don't just keep everybody else safe. There's people we need to protect, some people we love, and
if you guys are bored, then feel free to go on our Instagram page and send us a message at Murder With My Mother Podcast, and you can send us some suggestions. If you want to do some research, you can send us some information.
Yeah.
We're
always up for that. People. Yes. So
Danica,
we're so show.
Yeah. So I've had a couple of suggestions that people have sent, and next week is my week or not next week, the week after is my week to do a case. So I know that my friend Tyra sent me some interesting stuff, and I'm going to take a look at that. I've got some interesting stuff from a couple other people, and I'm going to take my 2 weeks and do some thorough investigating, and Danica's going to join me on the next episode of Murder With My Mother, where Danica talks murder
with my mother. Bye, guys. Have a good one.